Okay, so you've now calculated or done all of your calculations. You've calculated the volumes, so you've calculated 6 volumes, 6 densities, and then you've also calculated an average for the pre-1982 pennies and the average for the post-1982 pennies. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to graph that information. So this, the directions here tell you to graph mass versus volume as y versus x. And so what that means is that your mass in grams will be on the y-axis, and your mass, and your volume in milliliters will be on your x-axis. Now, the question that a lot of students have is like, where am I going to get my numbers and how am I going to graph this? So we're going to go back up and we're going to go up and look at our data. So here is our volume, here are our masses. So we have a mass of a 15.55, a mass of 46.65, and a mass of 77.75. So I'm going to make a T-chart back on the graph and to hopefully illustrate this point a little bit better. So we're going to go back down. So here on, I'm just going to do it, I guess, over here. So I have volume, and I'm going to have mass. And so here's my T-chart. My mass for the pre-1982 pennies was 15.55, and I wish I could remember, but I don't, so I had to go back up. It's like 46.65 and 77.75. So here are my masses. So 46.65 and 77.75. And now I'm going to go grab the volumes that I calculated, which in the case of pre-1982 pennies was 1.8, 5.2, and 8.7. So I'm going to record those over here on my X part of the T-chart. So 1.8, 5.2, and 8.7, I think. I'm going to go look real quick. Yeah, 8.7. Okay. So these are the coordinates that I'm going to plot on this graph for pre-1982 pennies. Okay. And then for post-1982 pennies, I'm going to make another T-chart. And again, it's going to be volume on my X and mass on my Y. I'm going to go all the way back up and grab my masses, which are 12.51, 37.50, and 62.49. So 12.51, 37.50. So again, these are my masses. So 12.51, 37.50. I think it was 62. Sorry, I should have written this down. Yep, 62.49. So 62.49. And now my volumes are going to be calculated. So I'm going to grab them from up above, which are, let's see, 1.8, 5.3, 8.6. So relatively close. So we have 1.8, 5.3, and 8.6. Now, looking at this piece of graph or this graph paper that I guess has been provided for you in the lab, I can see that there are some definitively more dark lines than there are some of the other lines. And when I look at that, I usually like hone in on that stuff first. So if I start here at my X, I go 0, and then I see there's a line here and a line here and a line here and here, a darker line here, 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 and here. And I'm going to count those. So like that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it looks like so there's 10 of those darker lines. And it looks like in my volume section, my biggest number is around 9. So I'm just going to go by ones. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Try to use as much of the graph as possible. Now again, I have those darker lines, those darker lines here and here and here and here and here, all the way down, right? And we always want to start with our 0, so we're going to put a 0 here. Now, if I'm looking at my data over here, my biggest data point for my masses is 77. And so I want this to go close to 80 at least. So if I'm looking at this, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think the best possible choice for me to do here would be to go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, not 78, but 70, 80, 90, and something like 100, right? So now I'm going to just plot these as coordinate points. So I have a 1.8 and a 15.5, and I'm just going to pick a different number, different color here. So I'm going to go over 1.8. Let's see, looks like that, about right here, and 15.55. So let's go up 15. So it's 10, just right about there. So I'm going to go across, and I'm going to put a dot like right here. Okay. And then that's my first plotted point for the pre-1982 pennies. And you should end up, because there's two T charts, you should end up with 2 lines. And so as a result of that, you should be able to have 2 separate lines here. I highly suggest that when you draw them that you use a ruler or some type of a straight edge. And you don't have to necessarily connect the dots per se, but you do have to get as many of them on the line as you can. There should be 3 points for each of your lines, and draw the best line that you can. The next calculation that you have to do is slope. And slope is change in y over change in x, or y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And so I usually take this, like my first point and my last point, and I plug them in. So if these are my x's and these are my y's, you might be able to get a picture here as to what you're going to do. So you're going to use that formula to calculate the slope down below. And then when you're done with that, you have a few questions to answer. And then you can calculate the percent error, which is something that we went over in class a little while ago. So yeah, that's how you're going to graph the data. And then you're going to use your data and your lines to calculate the slope. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, this will be due the next time we see each other.